Hey guys, let's talk tech. Today we're just going to build another application using C Sharp, right? So here today the only difference is that today we're building desktop application using WPF. It's Windows Windows presentation form. So my name is Pomozo Mapari, then I am a C Sharp developer. So I want to explain to you what I already have built before I started recording the video. So if we go to the main application, so the main, before we start developing, the main idea is just that we're gonna have other parts of the same series, right? So in the end goal is to be able to build desktop applications using C Sharp and WPF. But on this session, on this series that you're going to have, is that the end goal is going to be building a software that is going to help users rent video games. Is going to be video games, movies, or they can buy video games or movies, right? So let me show you what I already have built here. So if we go to the main window, is where the application starts, right? When we build this application is where this application is going to start. So we want our application to start in the login page. So that's why we have our content control dot content, which is set to what? To a new login class. So what is going on here? So here we have the main window.xml.cs, which is the code behind each and every .xml file. So if you go to the xml.xml file, so here is where our UI is built. So now here we have we have already place the content control here. Then is this is the X name is the name that we use to target the UI elements using the code behind, right? So if we see, we have a grid here which has the content control inside. So the content control is this content control. So we want, when our application to run, we want our application to be what? On the login page. But because now we have a login page, we don't have a registration page. But for now, we're just going to say, okay, our users start in the login page. So this is our login page here. So this is our main window. So we're just going to close them for now because we're not going to need them now. Then let's go to our login.xml. This is our UI. So I've already built a simple UI. And then this is the code behind this.login.xml, right? So let me explain to you what I already built, right? So I have a grid here that has a margin of 20 around. So the margin is here. So what I like about this code editor Visual Studio is that it shows you the output in UI. It can show you the grids, it can show you the spacing and everything. So this is a content control, is a user control that we use to create multiple pages in WPF. So let's say, for example, the main window is just going to be the window that's going to be there to show us windows programmatically, right? To show us other windows. Let's say, for example, is this application, we're going to have multiple windows in the future, but for now we just we just have the login and the registration user control. Then these user controls are going to be displayed on the main page based on on our program, right? On our logic behind, right? On our business logic. So in this, let me show you that I have the grid column definitions. Here inside, we create our column definitions. So we just have one column definitions. That's why we put in a star. So we want to put the star there. The star is just say, okay, C Sharp, take all the space that's available on the particular element. We use the star. So let me show you. Now we have our row definitions. On our row definitions, we have the first one, which has the login, which is the height. So in the column, we only worry about the width. In the column definition, we worry about the width, but in the row definition, we worry about the height, right? So we have our first row definition, which is 50, which is the height of 50, which is going to hold our login or our registration, right? So for the second one, we're gonna have this one that's going to say, please provide all the information in order for you to log in, right? So for the third one is going to have the text block, which is going to explain to the user what this text text box needs from the user. So it's going to be the username, right? So we explain that. So now if we run our simple application, now you're just going to see that it's going to start. This is a simple thing that we have a login. So here the user can type in an email, right? A user can type in an email. So that is the basic things that I've already built for to start with, right? So now we're gonna need another text block and a text box, right? So we're just gonna copy these two elements right here, then we're gonna copy this, then paste them underneath. So which means here we're gonna have our password. We're gonna have our password, right? We're gonna have our password. So here instead of email, we're gonna have our password text box, right? So here we're just gonna start this with capital letter E. That's the naming conversion. So we have to change the grid row. So in order for us to align elements, right? Because I didn't explain that in the previous one, because we already have our own elements. So when we talk of that, we say we have this text box. When we have this text box, we use the grid row in order to place our element. So we know as a programmer that everything that counts from 0. Then we have row 0 is going to be the login. So row 1 is going to be then where we say please enter your information. Then row 2 is going to be the one that's going to have the email and the email text block and the email text box, right? So we need to go to the third row now. The third row is going to be the row after the email row, right? So we're going to say 3 there, and we're going to do 3 here, which means our elements are now what? Aligned. So if we run this program right now, so now our element didn't show, which means we have an error right there. Then we can see now that we have our text block, which is password. Then we have everything here. We have a row of 3 and 3, and then we have a text block. Then we have to run it. And then it is not showing our elements. So let's just close this and stop the application and see what's happening on our application. So we have a text block here, which is text, which has everything underneath. So we have everything here and here, then we have everything there and there. Then in between this one, we can just have a little bit of spacing. Copy, we can just have a little bit of spacing in between these two, right? So we're gonna have a little bit of spacing. Then we need to change this to row of 4, then row of 4, and then it's underneath our grid. So let's just run the application again and see what's happening. So our application is still not running the second input field. So let's check what's happening. So now here we have the password field, and then we have this text field, which is the password. So we have these two. So in this one we have a text block that's password, right? Grid row. Then we have a grid row, which is that one. So in this we have an X name, which is a text block of password, and a grid and a vertical. So we have our element, our content type should be like this, right? Our content type should be like this. So let's try to run that again and see. So again, our element is not displaying. So it says the name email text box does not exist, which means we have the error behind what? The error behind this code. So let's just remove this because I've changed the email password. So that's why our element didn't run. So let's go back to our login and press play and check. So we have our two input fields here. We have our two input fields where we're going to put the email and the password. So if we close this and go to the .xml file, so we can have this spacing. So we're going to use this as a spacing between our elements, right? So we're going to use this as spacing between our elements. So we're going to have this spacing of 20, which is going to be the spacing there. Then after the spacing of 20, we're going to have another spacing of 20 here, which is going to hold our text block. So which is going to hold our text block. If we now create our text block, then our text block is going to have the text that's going to be, no, we don't need the text, because it's going to be this one is going to be for the error. So we need an X name. So we're going to need an X name. This X name right here is going to be error message. So it's going to be error message for that. So we're going to need a foreground. A foreground is just like saying color. We're just changing the color. If you are or you have a background on CSS, you know that if you want to change a color of a text or p tag or an h1 or it could be any element, we need a color property. So here is the same, but here we use foreground to change the color of a text. So here the reason why I put red here is because it's gonna this text block is gonna be visible when the user needs to rectify their errors, right? So we're just gonna put it as well. So now we're gonna place it on grid.row. So in which row? So we know if we remember, we remember that our password is on row number 4, right? So in order for us to skip the row of that we use for padding, which means it's gonna be number 6, which means it's gonna be number 6, right? So our elements are pretty fine. So we need a button. When the user clicks the button, we're gonna need the content. We're gonna need the content type, which is gonna say log in, right? So we need to see that our button is up there. Then we're gonna need our height of 30, so that the hierarchy matches with the inputs, right? So we cannot have a button which is more bigger and then the input fields are more smaller. So now let's change the grid row. So our grid row, remember we need to skip the one for text. Then we're gonna say this one is number 7. So our button is to be at number 7. So we need the font weight, right? We need the font weight, let's just say font weight, which is gonna be medium. So we're gonna use the medium one, so that it's a little bit bold, right? It's a little bit bold. So background. So for the background, I don't know the background color of the button, but for now let's just keep it as a standard button, because now we're not focusing on the style. We are only focusing on what? On displaying the UI to the user, so that the user can take action, right? So we can see now that we have a button, but here I think we have more space, so that's not appropriate. So we're just gonna do it like, we're just gonna say 7, but we're just gonna say, for this one it's just gonna say 5, right? For this one it's just gonna say 6. We're gonna say 6 for this one. Then when we say 6, remember we have to change this one to 45, so that it takes in our button, so that we no longer need these two underneath here. We no longer need them. Then, which means now if we run our application, we can see now that our application is more precise, because here it's where we're gonna have our error message, right? So if we close this one, then we go to the code behind where the logic happens. So we just have to let's just close this method right here, then, and let's go back and create an on-click method, right? On-click method, so we can handle the event. So what is an event? An event is an object that's going to be triggered, right? It's an object that's going to be triggered when a user clicks the button. So the click event is the event that's going to be triggered when the user clicks the button. So we are handling the click event. If you are you have a background in JavaScript, you know that in JavaScript we can handle events like a click event on mouse leave, on mouse enter, etc. So here we want to create let's say we want C# to generate an event for us. So we just click on enter there. Then we can see that our method has been generated when the user clicks the button. So now we need we see that we need to handle events, right? So when we're handling event, we handle them in the code behind. So in the code behind here, when the user clicks on this button, what do we want the program to do? So we want the program to take the user's value. So we're gonna say let me check the name first. So we have this email text box. This is an X name that we use. Remember, we use the X name to target the UI, right? So this one is email. So you can see that it's generating for us. So an email box, text box dot, we need what? We need the text, right? We need the text of what? Of this element, right? We need the text of this element. So in this element, we're gonna store it in a variable which it returns a string. So we're gonna take this as email. So it's gonna take an email. So let's take another string, which is gonna be the password. String. You can see that C# is auto generating for us, but we need password. The text, we need the text from this password, right? And we're gonna take in the error message, string error message. So this is gonna be our error message, right? In this error message, we're gonna take the error message dot text. So what we need the text of this element. We need the text of this element. So now we can see that the text property is not available on what? On this property. So let's say we're just gonna do it in a simpler way. So let's say if, right now we're doing a check. Let's say email is not null. Let's say everything is not null, right? If everything is not equal to null, which means the user has entered something, then here we're gonna check if email, right, dot contains, if email contains at, which means it's a precise. But here, because we're using a char character, we can just use single quotes, then like so. So because it's our first version, we're just trying to make a login form. We just want to try so that we just want to try to log in the users. But in our second part, we're just going to use a regular expression so that we know that we have validated the email. So for now, let's just check if the email contains at, right? It contains at. So we're gonna check that if email that contains at, then if it doesn't, now we are checking for errors only. So we're gonna use this one. If it doesn't contain at, which means now is when we're gonna say error message dot text is equals to what? What do we want to say? Please provide a valid email. So this one is going to be generated dynamically, right? So else, I'm going to say else if, right? Else if password dot length, right? Dot length is less than 8, right? It's less than 8. So which means we're gonna say error message dot text is equals to password must be 8 characters long, right? 8 characters long. So this is gonna be like so. So this one is gonna be a simple validation for our first version. Else if everything is okay now. So if everything is okay, then we're gonna do what? We're gonna take in the window object, window object. So for that window object, we're gonna create a new instance of window, right? We're gonna create a new instance of window. That new instance of window, we're gonna say equals to, we don't create a new object, but remember, we want to what? We want to change the content of what? Of that previous content that we had, because remember on our first content we say, okay, when we start our application, if the user is not logged in, then we want what? We want to show to the user the login page. But now we want to do what? We want to change the content, right? We want to change the content to what? To the login. We want to change the content to the login page. So we're gonna create a new window. We're gonna say window dot get. We're trying to get the window. We're trying to get no, not small letter, capital letter, window. We need the main window object dot get window, which is this. Then in window we can do what? Dot content. We can target on this main window. If we go to the main.xml, we go to the code behind main.xml. Remember that we can get control over what? Over this. So we need the content control. We need the content. We need dot we need the content right, content. So we want to change the content control, which is going to be let's say content control, right? Content control is gonna be dot content. So we want to target the content of it. We want to target the content, which is gonna be not the content property, but I think it's the content property. Let's create a new object of we're gonna say home, right? So we're gonna create that home. We're gonna create the home. So this. So let's say window. Let's take the window dot content. Window dot content, right, is gonna be equals to I forgot to create a new instance. I forgot. First, let's create a new instance. So in that new instance, we're just gonna come to there, then add the new item, then we click on content control. Then this content control is going to be home, right? Home content, and we'll press enter. Then when we press enter, we can see that we have generated a new user control, which is home. But for this home, we're just going to do a text block, right? Text block. That text block is going to be to have a text of saying welcome home, right? So we're gonna say welcome home. So it's gonna be there, just to be there, right? So if we go back to our login, so in our login, we want to create a new home, right? We want to create a new home. So our main content control is gonna be on home now if the user has successfully created an account, if everything is valid. So let's try what we have, right? Let's try what we have. So we can see that everything is working. Then if we click here, nothing is going to happen, but we're just going to get a message because it's now both are null. Remember, both are null, and we get an error message. Please provide a valid email, right? So let's say we provide a valid email. Let's say we say user@gmail.com. Remember, our email, just our field, just check if the email has @. Let's try to submit. Please your password. So you see now our validation is working when we click on the on the login page. So let's try to do our password. I will just type in a random password, but remember the password box has to be hidden, which means we've chose the wrong UI element for the login, which means this one has to be a password. It has to be a password box. Then a password box. Remember, it has to be what? A password box. So a password box, not that one. Sorry, not this one. This one, text block, this one has to be a password. It has to be a password box. So remember, we use the password box for password. We don't use so that when we enter our password here, it's gonna be so, which means our password box text doesn't what, which means we have to change as well as the code behind here, which means this one doesn't contain the text property, but it contains the password property, so that we take in the what, the password from the user. So if we rerun our application again, so we see that our errors have disappeared. So now if we type here, we now don't see the user's password. So we're gonna say user at gmail.com. Then this is our email. Then let's just punch in a random. So if we say login, so you see now our window has changed to what, to home, which means the user is successfully logged in. But now in our next part, we're just going to do what, we're just going to validate the user for real. We're just gonna not use this simple dot contains, but we're just gonna use a regular expression to validate our user. Now if we now go back again here and try to add a new item, then we're gonna take in a user control. So this user control is gonna be register. It's gonna be register. Right, register. So now the user is going to be able to register an account. But in order for us to save a little bit of time, we can just go to login x.xml and take in the grid that we already have. Taking the grid, copy the grid, go to the register.xml, just paste everything inside here. So now you can see that we have everything, but our header here doesn't have to say login. It can say register. So we register, we please provide an information. Then we just need to, after that, we just need to add 2 rows. We just need to add 2 rows, copy. For the username, we're gonna have another for the username. And then we're gonna have another for the drop down, right? Then from this one, we're just going to copy the text box of this one and the text block, so that we can take as well as the username. Then after this block right here, we're gonna paste this. After pasting that there, we're just gonna say username. We're gonna take in the user's username, and then here as well we're gonna say user name text box. So now we can say that we have a username and the email the same pattern. So this one is gonna be at 4, right, as well as its child, they're gonna be at 4, which means password is gonna be there 5. Then text block is at 4 5, which means it's at 6, is at 6, as well as this one, which means this one is at 6. Right, then the button, for the button, it has to change from 6 to 7, I think 8, and from that 8, which means we just need to remove one of the element here. Then we have 60. Here we have 60 for this one, which means we're gonna change that to 45. All right, we have that to 45. Then for register, I think we're gonna need another one, which is gonna be 20 underneath here, 20 20. Right, from that we're gonna need another button so that we can go to the registration page, and if the user already has an account, then we're gonna take the button and put the button here. So the button is at 8, but we can put it at 9. So you see at the button at 9, but we can just do something like 45. Right, we can do something like 45, but the background of the button has to be white, right? Has to match the white. So the background has to be white, not wheat but white. So it's gonna be white, right? So it's gonna be white. So it's gonna take the background color of our UI element. So it's gonna, which means we have an error register that does not contain the definition button. So which means we need to remove this event. The problem is this event, because remember we copied it from the previous events. So we're gonna remove that and run it again. I'm gonna remove that and run it again. Then when we run it again, we now see that we have these and these and these, but we do not have the other button. We do not have the other button. This button, which is going to be not login. Login. No, we don't need this button first at here, but we need which means we're gonna have to go to our main container and change it to register, which means our application is going to start at register. Right, it's going to start at register. So if we run our application now, we're gonna see that our application is not going to start to what? It's gonna start at register. So here is where we register our users, right? Register our user. So if we close this application and go back to our register.xml, so our register.xml has two properties that are the same. Then we're gonna have foreground, not focusable, foreground. We need a foreground of black, right? We need a foreground of black, but he is gonna say, yeah, it needs to say login, but this one needs to say register account or register, just to be simple, register. So it's gonna be register. Then you can see that we have our element register here. Then down here we have our login page. So we just have to make this scrollable. We'll just make this scrollable if let's say a user has opened this in a smaller window, so that the user can see. Then or what you can do is just to go to the main window and .xml and change the height of it here. So you can change the height of it here. So let's say 600. So that when you run the application at first, you can see that all the content could be visible, right? You can see that all the content is visible. So when we click here, we want the user to go to the login page. When the user is on the login page, we want him or her to go back to the registration page. So let's start from here. So on the registration page, we're gonna come here and do the click event. This click event, I'm just gonna say click event underscore register. It's on register, no, underscore login underscore login. So this one is gonna be our name, our function name. If we go back here, then we change the name and put it here. You can see that we have this one. So when we have this one, we're gonna create an instance of window, right? We're gonna create an instance of window. That window object is gonna be we don't want a new window, but we need to get the content of the window. So what we do is say dot get window. Then we want which window to get this. Want this to get this window. So on that window, we can do something like window dot content, right? Dot content, which is going to be equals to new. We are on register. We're gonna be login. So the user is gonna be taken from the other window to the other window. So when we click, so on login.xml.cs, so let me login.xml. We need the other button. We need the other button on .xml. For this XML, we need the button like this one. We're just gonna copy that and put it on login, no, the logic behind. So .xml. So here, I'm just gonna put the button underneath. So in underneath, we're just going to do something like what? Let's just remove this one at first, the click event at first. So a click event is at 9, so let's say at 10. After the button, we have 45. Then we can have another 45 after this one. We have another 45. Then we have another 45. Then on click. So on click, we're just gonna create an event. Sorry for that. So on click, we're just gonna create a new event. Where it's gonna be on click register. Right. So this one is gonna be our event. So we're just gonna copy this event. Right here. Copy the event. Then go to our login.xml. Then we see our function down here. It's gonna replace the name of that. Then voila. Then we have this one. Then we're gonna take that window instance again and put it, copy on login.xml.cs. We put it here. Then because we're on the login, we're just going to go to register. We're just going to register. Right. So we're gonna register. So if we rerun our application again, remember we don't have validation for the username. But if we click here, we see now we go to the login page. So login, we have to change that. If we go to here, we go to the registration page. So we just have to change this one to register. Then we run that. Then let's go to register .xml. Then on register.xml, we can go to register.xml. But let's just take the login, this if else statement from login. We can just take it from here until here. Then after taking that, we can go to register.xml.cs. Then on which button click. Then if we go to register, right? So this one is gonna be register an account. So we're gonna do that. Click event, generate. We want it to generate an event who's gonna be button click. So on button click, we go to register. We're gonna see that we have another button event. Then we paste that if else statement on that. So we have these two. Then the final thing that we need from this one is a string. That's gonna be the username, right? Which is gonna be what was that? Username dot what? User name text box dot text. So that's what we need. And then for that, and we're just gonna do an else if right here. If username, right? If username dot length, because the string we have the property is less than 5. Let's say is less than 5. What we can do is that we can do the error message dot text, right? Which is going to be what? Which is going to be username must be more than 5 characters, right? So we close our validation, right? We close our validation. So if we go back there and run our application, then we're just going to check here, register. It's gonna say provide, but now remember we didn't change that. We need our message to be under each and every field. So on register, we can go back on register and try to fix that. Then if we go back on register, we remember that our message is going to be here. but we need our message to be underneath. So which is this one? It's going to be 5, 5, 6. Let's try it. Is it 7? Yeah, it's 7. So let's rerun our application again. So now we can try to register. So now you see our message is down here. Then let's try to say user. So user at gmail.com. And then we're gonna have our password, our jumbly password, which is not even validated, but we're gonna try validating it in the second part. So you see now the user is welcomed at home, right? So in the next part, we're gonna learn how to use environmental variable to store a temporary data, so that the user, when they return to the application, they can be still logged in if the session hasn't expired. So this is our simple login form for our application. Remember the goal is to do what? Is to, at the end of this series, we will have a project which is a system where users are going to rent for movies, rent for games, rent for everything that you can think of. So this is the simple login and registration form using WPF. So in the future, we're going to learn styling our desktop applications. We're going to learn connecting them to the database, saving information to the database. So this series, at the end of this series, we're going to have knowledge on how to build WPF applications, and how to connect it to the database, how it interacts with the database, how to style element, how to add gradients, how to add background colors in the main content. All the stuff, we're gonna learn them here. So don't forget to like and share and subscribe with your friends. So now, if you were following along, now you can go to your friends and show them that you can build desktop applications using WPFs. But in the future, I'm always going to I will as well do tutorials on developing websites, and as well as developing mobile applications using .NET framework as well, because remember, we're a C# developer. So in C#, using the .NET framework, you can build many things.